Gemar Hatima Tova. May the end of this day, this Yom Kippur, seal you for good in this new year, 5781. I'm Rabbi Nikki de Blasi. This is Hillel's Higher Holidays, Yom Kippur. And let's acknowledge it right away. Yom Kippur feels for many Jewish people like a day to be in the synagogue. Maybe it's the only day you feel like being in a synagogue. And spoiler alert, we're not in a synagogue right now. And that's okay. In the Midrash, our ancestors reflected on this very dilemma. Said the Holy One to Israel, I asked you to pray in the synagogue of your city. But if you cannot pray in the synagogue, pray outdoors in an open field. Pray in the shelter of your home. Pray in the dark on your own bed. And if you cannot pray on your own bed, meditate in your heart with no words. Let that sink in. You don't need a synagogue. God knows that sometimes what is asked of us becomes impossible if we stick to doing things the way they've always been done. God knows that Jewish tradition is full of drama and metaphor designed to help us humans access something infinite. Maybe for you that's God, that's divinity. Maybe for you that's Jewish tradition, or it's community, or it's prophetic social justice, or maybe it's complaining about how hard it is to fast on Yom Kippur, or looking forward to that great spread at your relative's break the fast meal. Prayer book or field, synagogue or live stream, all you need today is yourself and an open mind and an open heart. A mind open enough to be assured that you are part of a minyan today. You are part of a prayer community, a connected collective. If you close your eyes, can you imagine the faces of 9 of your friends surrounding you? Can you picture Jewish students from campuses all across the world standing in their parents' living rooms or in the common room of a residence hall, their mouths and noses masked, maybe standing by the local pond on campus, spread 6 feet apart? We might not be standing shoulder to shoulder in a crowded synagogue with voices young and old echoing and greeting us, with the cantor's trills, with the music of an organ that only gets played once a year, but we are connected. How is that possible? As long as we're turning our minds and our hearts to community on this Yom Kippur, then we are connected. We're going to flow this morning, and we're not going to recite every single word in the Machzor. We're going to move through some of the major moments in the morning service, and we're going to build up to really the culmination of our day in the Torah service and in our prayers for forgiveness. Long ago, we were asked to pray in a synagogue. Today, we are asked to connect where we are, how we are, who we are. We begin with acknowledgement. We're awake. We're alive, and we're together.
וקיים Can you count the number of communities you belong to? Counting colleges, clubs, cultures, families, friends, sororities, fraternities, even owning a dog makes you part of the dog lovers community. Do you remember forming those bonds, joining those support systems? Do you remember how it happened? With a hug, a smile, a lot of free food at events? Is it hard to imagine spending those long hours of quality time with someone from 6 feet away? It is for me. But now we've entered a new era, an era where community is actually stronger from afar. Caring and feeling cared for, which is the basis for any strong community, hasn't changed one bit. The only thing that has changed is how we show we care. Now, caring means we give a nod instead of a smile, a hello instead of a handshake, a wave instead of a hug. It's holding your breath while you're holding the door open, and it's masking your face to show your heart. And the most meaningful way now to care for your community is to show concern for all the lives within it. It's now a world where missing an important event because you have a sore throat is one of the greatest ways to show your peers respect. And sitting across the lawn to have a conversation with your grandparents is a massive symbol of love. It's now a world where we have to act differently to keep things the same, to keep our communities connected.
One of the great themes of Yom Kippur is our embodiment and our vulnerability. It's a day when we fast in 5 ways. We fast from food and drink. We fast from washing for pleasure, from perfuming the body, from sexual relations, and from wearing leather shoes. These are things that remind us of the realities and the pleasures of this world. And traditionally we wear white. It's the same color that we will wear in the grave. And on Kol Nidre last night, when you open the doors of the ark, if we had had an ark with us, it's a wooden box. We take out the Torah scrolls and it's empty. It is an aron, a holy ark, and also an aron, a coffin. So we're really reminded today that we are vulnerable, that we are mortal and ephemeral. And so we ask ourselves, how do I want to live? How do I want to live when my time is so short? Fasting is complex, and some people are not fasting from food and drink today, and that is okay, because our tradition says that pikuach nefesh, that preserving a soul, is the most important. So for those who struggle with fasting, I just want to assure you that the judgments of other people, or even you against yourself, you can let them go. And know that whatever your fast is today is the right one for you. And so I'm going to recite for us 2 meditations. The first is for those who must eat during Yom Kippur. And the second is for those who are fasting. Whichever, or if both speak to you, take this moment for yourself to prepare for this day. Rofeh chol basar, healer of all living creatures, I thank you for the breath that is in me, for the community of Israel that lives for the possibilities of today and tomorrow. May my eating be as a fast, to the renewal and the restoration of my relationship to you, to others, to myself. Blessed are you, soul of the universe, creator of many creatures and their varied needs, for sustaining the lives of all beings. Life of the universe, we praise you. Now we abstain from food and drink that we may dedicate ourselves to the spiritual tasks of this holy day. Blessed is the source of all. You open us to nourishment. Be with us throughout this time of intentional fasting. In the morning, we pray every morning, not just on Yom Kippur, in gratitude for the way things are, in gratitude for our bodies and for our souls. And so we're going to turn this morning to the words of Asher Yatzar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, Uvaravo nekavim nekavim, chalulim chalulim. Galui lifnei chisei kavodecha. She'im yipateach echad mehem, uyisatem echad mehem, yefshar hitkayem v'la'amod lefanecha. Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh chol basar umafli la'asot. I can look at my body as an old friend who needs my help, or an enemy who frustrates me in every way with its frailty and inability to cope. Old friend, I shall try to be of comfort to you to the end. We turn immediately from this prayer for our bodies to a prayer for our souls. Elohai Neshama.
Elohai Neshama shenatata bi, tehorahi, tehorahi. Elohai Neshama shenatata bi, tehorahi, tehorahi. Awake, my soul. Take a big deep breath. Awake, my soul. Awake, my soul. One more time. Awake, my soul. Elohai, Elohai Neshama shenatata bi, tehorahi, tehorahi. Elohai Neshama shenatata bi, tehorahi, tehorahi.
Said the Roman procurator Turnus Rufus to Rabbi Akiva, whose acts are greater? Those of human beings or those of God? Rabbi Akiva answered, the deeds of humans are greater. Surprised, Turnus Rufus asked, but can you create the heavens and the earth? Akiva replied, do not speak to me of what is beyond the reach of humankind. Speak of what is available to human beings. Akiva then brought to Turnus Rufus wheat stalks and cakes, raw flax and fine linen. The wheat and the flax are the work of God, said Akiva. But the cakes and the linen were made by human beings. Are they not superior? So our sages taught. All created things require refining and improvement. The mustard seed needs to be sweetened. The lupine needs to be soaked. The wheat needs to be ground, and the human being needs to be repaired. The world that is given into our hands is still incomplete. Go forth then, and work to make it better. Go forth and work to make it better. The accounting we take between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is not about self-deprecation or pity. It's about acknowledging that we have power. We might not have power in every single context of our lives, but we have the power to pause, to respond, and to act. We can make cakes from flour, and dare I say, many of us have been doing little else during this time than making cakes and baking bread and learning to knit and writing get out the vote letters. There are actions we can take in the world. The world that is given into our hands is still incomplete. Go forth then and work to make it better. I invite you to join with me now in taking stock. I invite you to engage in some cheshbon nefesh, an accounting of the soul. Not as a way to highlight your flaws or your mistakes, but as a way to honestly acknowledge what you have done and what you have failed to do. Where you've hit your mark, where you've fallen short, and where maybe you've exceeded your limited expectations for yourself. Later on today, as the sun goes down, we'll make confession in a more formal way, but right now I want you to take time to reflect on your personal soul accounting. It's traditional to refrain from writing on this holiday, so don't feel pressured to record your accounting. Just take time to be internal. Maybe you want to get more comfortable. Maybe you want to sit with your back straight, with your chin and your neck in line with your spine. You might want to keep your hands in a relaxed position, maybe palms up on your thighs. If you're comfortable, close your eyes. Feel any tension in your body. Is it in your face, in your neck, in your back, in your hands? Release it and let it go. And you can listen to these words of inspiration to guide you through your soul accounting. Or you can listen to your own heart. I reflect on the harm I have done to myself through failure to care for my body and preserve my health, through failure to develop my mind and grow in learning, through failure to develop my spiritual life and seek God's presence, through failure to maintain my integrity and remain faithful to my ideals, through trying to meet my emotional needs in unhealthy ways, through sexual irresponsibility, through failure to manage my finances wisely, through indulging in negative thinking, self-obsession, or self-denigration, through closing myself off from others rather than reaching out, through taking on too much and neglecting what matters most, through using time in a way that does not reflect my true priorities, through fear of change, stagnation, falling into routine. I confess acts of harming myself. I reflect on the harm I have done to my family and friends through my failure to listen with care, empathy, and compassion, through my failure to give my time, attention, and energy to sustaining important relationships, through my failure to convey affection and respect, appreciation, and gratitude, through my stubbornness, giving in to anger or violence, through my intolerance of imperfection in others, through criticism, harsh judgment, and focusing on the negative, through my failure to fulfill my responsibilities and sacred commitments, through intrusiveness, over-involvement, manipulation, through gossip, through failure to give the benefit of the doubt, through withholding my deepest self, lying and deceit, through my failure to forgive and let go of grudges, through neglect, impatience, or insensitivity toward my parents and elders, through neglect, impatience, or insensitivity toward my children and other young people. I confess acts of harming my family and my friends. I reflect on the harm I have done to the world around me through my failure to take time to educate myself about complex social problems, through my failure to do my part as an active citizen and make my voice heard, through resigning myself to the way things are rather than working for change, through succumbing to racism and disdaining those different from myself, through overconsumption, materialism, and self-indulgence, through my failure to respond with generosity to those in need, through my discourtesy, ill temper, and impatience at work, through dishonesty in my work or financial dealings, through breaking the law or bending the rules, through cynicism and abandoning hope. I confess these acts of harming the world around me. I reflect on the harm I have done to the Jewish people through my failure to make time for Jewish learning, for worship and mitzvot, through neglecting to do my part in carrying on the tradition, through my reluctance to keep growing in my Jewish life and deepen my practice, through my failure to be a good Jewish role model for the children in my life, through gossip and harmful speech about members of our community, through taking from the community without giving back, through my indifference to Jews in need here and around the world, through ignoring opportunities to visit, support, and educate myself about all the places in which Jewish people live, through my failure to exemplify the highest Jewish values and virtues. I confess acts of harming the Jewish people. Take your own time in reflecting on ways you need to account your soul. we'll join back together when you're ready. To whom will you voice your confession this morning? Who holds you accountable to keeping your promises? Who notices when you work and work to be your best self? Tap into that sense of responsibility and accountability. Think about the you that you want to be when next Yom Kippur rolls around, 5782. Majestic God, today enthroned beyond time and space. These are the words of our prayer book. HaMelech, the king, the ruler, the sovereign. But this morning we're going to flow from this ancient prayer to the words of folk songwriter Annie Zylstra. And so her song goes. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, in the ever-rolling ocean.
HaMelech Yosheva al Kisei Ram Venisa. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and in the ever-rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground, until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and in the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground, until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and in the ever-rolling ocean. One more time. I believe in solid ground, until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and in the ever-rolling ocean.
The words of Shlomo ibn Gabirol, 11th century Jewish poet and thinker from Spain. If you were to keep an account of our sins, who could survive? Who would be vindicated at the end of the day? As we take much needed public account of the many sins we have committed as individuals, as communities, as nations, as industries, as we take account through political reckonings, through the Me Too movement, we wonder how atonement, how tshuva, how return, how repair and reparation might even be possible. Rabbi Tarfon used to say, "The day is short and the work is plentiful." A hard task. So much to repair and an existence that is fleeting. But Tarfon also used to say, "It is not your duty to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it." The work of repairing the world, the work of taking account of our own actions, this is in the Jewish community both deeply personal and deeply communal.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer uvorei choshe ose shalom uvorei et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haadonai Eloheinu yotzer uvorei choshe ose shalom uvorei choshe. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haadonai Eloheinu yotzer uvorei choshe ose shalom uvorei choshe. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haadonai Eloheinu yotzer uvorei choshe ose shalom uvorei choshe. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haadonai Eloheinu yotzer uvorei choshe ose shalom uvorei choshe ose shalom uvorei et hakol. Hava
turn to the Shema, a call to pay attention, to listen up. As I recite the words of the Shema, it may be your custom to close your eyes. Some folks take the tzitzit, the fringes, on the corners of our talit, our prayer shawl, and gather them together. Some folks make the letter Shin for Shaddai, a protecting presence of God, of the divine. Whatever is your custom, join with me today. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinamtam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lektecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem Emet.
The words of the prayer Mi Chamocha were sung by the Israelites as they crossed the Red Sea. And I always find it so interesting and beautiful that although they were so crunched for time, there wasn't even time to let the bread rise. Miriam still had the foresight to bring instruments because she knew that they were going to have to sing once they had reached freedom. And every time I sing these words, I'm reminded that we should always be working towards the point where we can all sing for our freedom. Mi chamocha
For all of us, this year has been full of surprises. No one could have foreseen that a global pandemic would fundamentally disrupt our country, our world, and even the basis of human community itself. I remember learning about the pandemic around Purim and feeling like we were entering a kind of nafuhu, an overturning of the world we previously existed in. This is my hope for the upcoming year, that I can learn to live with that uncertainty, that I can share in new ways of living in and building community, and that together we can enter into and build a better world. Chag Sameach.
Hi, I'm Maya Hahn.
And I'm Sophie Lair.
And we are the co-presidents at Santa Barbara Hillel.
Today we've prepared a short poem for you guys to remind us all of our communities.
Shabbos dinners with our friends. At Hillel, the fun never ends.
We gather round and study hard, then go make s'mores in the backyard.
We eat bagels with lox and schmear, laughing, kvelling with our peers.
Bachelor nights, yoga, and coffee conversations, and don't forget the nice Jewish boy competitions.
Challah bakes, trips to Germany, community service. Hillel helps us find our purpose.
Our buildings where we feel at home, yet on Zoom we feel less alone.
During this difficult time we have found events that keep our community around.
Trivia nights and virtual Shabbats galore, cooking tutorials, spilling tea, and more.
Virtual book clubs to stimulate our minds. These are the memories we will never leave behind.
Although this year won't be the same, our Hillel community will remain. The high holiday season is a time that prompts reflection on our year, our lives, and what we value most. For us at Santa Barbara Hillel, one of our integral values is community.
Although we may not be together in person, our community continues to grant us love and strength during these challenging times. While we miss gathering for Shabbat, embracing each other, and sharing meals together, we feel blessed to be able to congregate in virtual and distant settings.
In masks or on screen, we have come to learn that our Hillel community defies borders and buildings. Our communities are made up of intelligent, creative, inspiring students. The strength we share during times of difficulty is what carries us through to the normalcy we crave. Whether we gather this fall on campus or online, we wish you a safe and happy new year.
Shana Tova from all of us at Santa Barbara Hillel.
From Tfilis by Kaya Molodowski. I still don't know whom. I still don't know why I ask. A prayer lies bound in me and implores a God and implores a name. I pray in the field, in the noise of the street, together with the wind when it runs before my lips. A prayer lies bound within me and implores a God and implores a name. To the west when the sun sets, to the east when it rises there. To each spark that it show me the light and make my eyes bright. To each worm that glows in the darkness at night, that it shall bring its wonder before my heart and redeem the darkness that is enclosed in me. We ask that our lips be opened, that our mouths be opened. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, Elyon, Gomer הצדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר אז די אבות ואמהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. Remember us for life. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני. מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתירי עצורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע. מי כמוך ברחמים, זוכה יצוריו לחיים ברחמים. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. Unatan Tokef. Today we call it by its rightful name, a day of dread, Nora Vayom, unwelcome visitor. For we want to live in a sunny world where God is love and all endings are happy. But the drumbeat sounds, and the words tumble down, and even the angels tremble with fear, for all things are judged, and all things will pass, and life ends in a heartbeat, and death knows our name. At the start of the year, in the season of truth, comes the day of remembrance, for we all forget, and we all deny, and we fall on our knees in the depths of our hearts, for we know that the bell tolls for us. The words are old, and the language was theirs, but the call is real, and the message is ours. Take hold of your life while you still have the chance, for your story will end, and it might be this year, in a way you don't know. Take hold of your life. Make things right while you can, and do not miss the call of the day of dread. Let us proclaim the power of this day, a day whose holiness awakens deepest awe and inspires the highest praise for your dominion. For yours, God, is a throne of love, and your reign is a reign of truth. Unetane tokef kidushat hayom ki hu nora v'ayom uvoti nase malchutecha v'yichom v'chesed kisecha v'teshev alav be'emet. Emet, in truth, you are judge and plaintiff, counselor and witness. You inscribe and seal, you record and recount. You remember all that we have forgotten. And when you open the book of memories, it speaks for itself. For every human hand leaves its mark, an imprint like no other. ובשופר גדול ייתקע וקול דממה דקה יישמע. And so a great shofar will cry, Tekiah. A still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, Behold, the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes, even they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you, like sheep before the shepherd. Kivakarat roe edro ma'avir tono tachat shivto. Kivakarat roe tono ma'avir tono tachat shivto. All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before the shepherd, and as a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds, you decide destiny, you inscribe judgments. B'Rosh Hashanah yikatevun u'v'yom tzom kippur yechatemun. B'Rosh Hashanah yikatevun u'v'yom tzom kippur yechatemun. Kama yavorun v'chama yibareun mi yihyeh u'mi yamut mi b'kitzo u'mi lo b'kitzo. B'Rosh Hashanah yikatevun u'v'yom tzom kippur yechatemun. On Rosh Hashanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass away from this world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine and who by drought? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humble and who exalted? But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. U'teshuva, u'tefila, u'tzedakah, mavirin et roha hagezerah. You are everything that we praise you for. Slow to anger, quick to forgive. You do not wish the death of sinners, but urge them to return from their ways and live. Until the day of death you wait for them. You accept them at once if they return. Since you created us, you know our impulses. We are but flesh and blood. And we sanctify your name in the world, as the song of the angels in the heavens sanctifies you in the realms beyond. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, kakahatu b'yad nevihecha, v'kara hazeh אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, hallelujah. We will teach your greatness ledor vador, from generation to generation, and to the end of time we will affirm your holiness. Our God, your praise shall ever be on our lips, for your power is boundless, sovereign, and holy. And as we continue with our Amidah, we continue silently with the words in whatever prayer book you have in front of you this morning, or with the words and the memories and the aspirations in your hearts. Yai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai. Ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da. Ya'aleh v'yavo, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Ya'aleh v'yavo. V'yagia v'yira'eh, v'yeratzeh, v'yishma v'yifaked v'yizacher, zikronenu, ufdonenu, v'zikron avotenu v'imotenu. Our God, God of the generations before us, may a memory of us ascend and come before you. May it be heard and seen by you. Winning your favor, reaching your awareness, together with the memory of our ancestors, the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of atonement. Zochrenu Adonai Eloheinu bo letova, amen. Eternal God, remember us, amen. Ufokdenu vo livracha, be mindful of us, amen. V'hoshienu vo lechayim, amen. Redeem us for a life of goodness and blessing, amen. God, God of our forebears, pardon our failings on this day of atonement. Erase our misdeeds. See beyond our defiance. For Isaiah said in your name, "It is I alone, who wipe away your defiant acts. This is my essence. I shall pay no heed to your errors." And the prophet said, as a cloud fades away, as mist dissolves into air, so your wrongs and mistakes shall be gone. I will wipe them away. Come back to me that I may redeem you. And you said to Moses, "For on this day of atonement shall be made for you, to purify you from all your wrongs, and pure you shall be in the presence of Adonai your God. ותהה ליבנו לעבדך, 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 לעבדך באמת. 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 Help us to serve you truly with purity of heart, for you are the forgiver of Israel, in every generation granting pardon to the tribes of Yeshurun. We have no God of forgiveness and pardon but you alone. Baruch atah Adonai, melech mochel v'soleach lavonoteinu, v'lavonot amo beit Yisrael, umavir ashmoteinu b'chol shana v'shana. Melech al kol haaretz, mekadesh Yisrael. 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 Melech al kol haaretz, mekadesh Yisrael, v'yom HaKippurim. We continue with a poem to guide our inner thoughts, the patience of ordinary things. It is a kind of love, is it not? How the cup holds the tea, how the chair stands sturdy and foursquare, how the floor receives the bottom of shoes or toes, how soles of feet know where they're supposed to be. I've been thinking about the patience of ordinary things, how clothes wait respectfully in closets, and soap dries quietly in the dish, and the towels drink the wet from the skin of the back, and the lovely repetition of stars. And what is more generous than a window?
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vanenu, Ki ein banu maasim, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed, V'hoshienu. Ay, 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 ay,
Hello, my name is Hannah Raskin. I am the Vice President of Wellness at USC Hillel, and I'm joined here today by Dean Soni, and we're going to be having a conversation about some of the unique challenges that students are facing right now. Hello, Dean Soni.
Hello, good to see you. Thank you
Good to
for
see you as well.
for having this conversation.
Yes, I look forward to learning a little bit more about your opinions on these things. So the first concept that I think I want to talk about is sort of the idea of control or lack thereof and how that relates to spirituality. So as you know, a lot of the deciding factors about students' lives right now are just completely out of our control, whether that be where we're living, whether or not we're at school, etc. And my question is, how do you think that spirituality or religion potentially can help students sort of guide themselves and deal with the anxiety that comes up with that lack of control?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I think we're all struggling with it in some way or another, whether we're students, faculty, staff, whether we're parents or in the larger community, whatever it is, we've all been impacted by physical distancing in a way that feels as though we can't tell our own story. We're not working in the way that we might want to work. We're not meeting in the way that we might not want, that we might normally meet. We feel maybe as though our career paths are disrupted in some ways, or that that we have to reevaluate our hopes and our dreams and our aspirations because of forces that are external to us. And I know we're all struggling with that. It's very real. But I do think that what this time has showed us is that actually that's usually the case. There are forces that are outside of our control. There are things that happen in the world that we can't control. And the reality is that what we could control pre-COVID and what we can control now is pretty much the same. We might not be able to control the reactions of the world, the actors in the world. Might not be able to control the events of the world, but we couldn't control them even beforehand. What we could control beforehand and what we can control now is our reaction to the events of the world, not what's happening out there, but what's happening in here, what's happening in here. That is always within our control. We should never cede that to anyone else. So what can we control? We can control what our hopes are, what our dreams are, what our values are. We can control who we want to spend time with. We can control how we look at the world, how we judge or don't judge other people. We can control how many times we tell people we love them. We can control our diet, our nutrition, our sleep. We can control what we study, how we study, when we study. We can control, we can control actually how we are grateful, how we forgive. Those are the things that actually shape our lives fundamentally, especially in terms of well-being. It's not the events of the world, it's our reaction to the events of the world. That's where we have real control. When I was in college, I spent some time living in a Buddhist monastery in India. And what I realized is I couldn't get people to do what I wanted them to do. I couldn't get everything to happen the way I wanted it to happen. In a college student's normal experience, you might not get the grades you want. You might not get the internship you want. You might not get the fraternity or sorority you want. The story of my life is I could never get the person I'd like to like me back, but that's part of a normal experience. All we can control is our reaction to that. And that's what I learned in the monastery. I can't control the world out there, but I can control the world in here. And sometimes it's the world in here that's causing us the suffering. It's by the way we're looking at the world, the way we're interpreting the world, the way we're judging the world. And if there's some way to shift our mindset, suddenly we might see that some of our suffering subsides too. And it's not because things have changed externally, but because things have changed internally. So I think what COVID has given us is in some ways, a glimpse into what always was in a painful way. But hopefully what that means is that we embrace fully the things we can control. We don't ever cede that to anyone else, and we don't ever take that for granted.
That's a really interesting perspective that I hadn't really considered, is that in reality, there is no increase of lack of control. We're just more aware of it, because I guess the things that are apparent to us are changing in some ways. So that's a really interesting perspective.
For me, spirituality is really about questions. It's about living questions that we all ask. Those are the questions that make us human. That's why I think you can be spiritual but not religious. I think we're all spiritual fundamentally. And those questions are, who am I? What does my life mean? How do I translate my values into action? How do I find hope and joy? What matters to me? Why does it matter to me? Those are questions that every human wrestles with in some way or another. Those are questions that connect us to everyone who's lived across space and time. And we do have some time and some space now to actually wrestle with these questions. There's not as many distractions in the world to keep us away from these existential questions. And so in some ways, this moment where there is some space, there is some time, the world has paused for a moment, gives us an opportunity to ask these questions, these spiritual, existential, human questions, in a way that we might never have before. And so even though it's a very painful time, it can be a very generative time in terms of one's own spiritual formation, because you can wrestle with and interrogate and sit with these very difficult questions in ways that previously there was always a distraction. There's always something else to focus your attention to. And now we can sit and wrestle with these questions in a way that I think will move us forward post-pandemic.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I definitely have personally been reading a lot more about spirituality and just conceptions of souls and what it means to be a human and what it means to be a person. And so, yeah, I definitely think that is one benefit of all this increased time spent alone right now.
Totally. I read 45% of college students during COVID have picked up some kind of spiritual health or mental health practice or have engaged some kind of resource in a new way. So that means that our students are self-aware of what they're going through, and they're looking for some way to move forward with each other, and both internally and externally, to wrestle with the challenges internally and also of the world. And so I think because of that, in some ways, Hillel's never been more important. Students are really thirsty for the kinds of experiences, communities, resources, perspectives, worldviews, and inspiration that Hillel has traditionally provided. Even though it's not being provided in the same way, the need is far greater right now. So all the student leaders of Hillel across the country, and really of all religious and student organizations on campus, are doing prophetic, heroic work that's really born out of their care for one another. And so I'm so grateful to you for that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the compliment. It's very, very nice. We are starting to come towards the end of our time together. I do want to thank you very much, because I think this conversation has really sort of changed my perspective. It's funny because a lot of my questions that I came in with, you sort of indirectly answered through your answers of my other questions. I feel like my perspective has sort of shifted a bit, and I'm sort of realizing that this pandemic is isolating in a lot of different ways, but in a lot of ways it's created a lot of opportunity for growth and for changes of perspective. I feel very thoughtful at the moment, and I thank you for that very much.
Thank you.
We stand this day, all of us, in the presence of something bigger than ourselves. Maybe it's this Torah scroll. Maybe it's the Catskill Mountains across the valley behind me. Maybe it's your bare feet in a dorm room, wherever you are. You are standing here in and with the Jewish community. And a really long time ago, our ancestors also stood on a mountain together. I'm going to let you in on a little backstage knowledge that I learned from my teacher, Rabbi Larry Hoffman, which is that the Torah service is a loose script. It's intended to bring us back to the moment when the people stood at a mountain with thunder and lightning crashing around us and entered into a covenant with God. So whatever you need to get yourself there this morning, it's always been in our imaginations. So maybe today, over live stream out of sync, might seem more challenging to get there, or maybe actually it's easier. We're already suspending our disbelief in COVID, that we're together in a minyan. We are together, apart. So I'm here with a Torah that was graciously donated to us to borrow today by Rabbi John Haddon and the community of Congregation Beth David in Amenia, New York. It was rescued from Czechoslovakia, rescued from the Nazis. And we're reviving her this morning by reading together. So we're going to move through the reading from Reformed tradition. It's called Nitzavim, and it's about how the entire people stood together to make promises about the kind of society we wanted to create, we wanted to live in. So we're going to hear the story in 3 sections, in 3 aliyot, and in turn, each aliyah will have 3 parts. I'm going to chant the text for you, I'm going to translate it for you, and then we'll hear a student take on themes from this reading. And you'll have the opportunity to step up virtually as part of our group aliyot. So imagine you're here standing at the mountains with me.
Hi, my name is Leah and I love my Jewishness. This was not always something I could say. As a grandchild of Holocaust survivors who worked hard to assimilate into American society, and as a child who grew up never going to synagogue, I always felt like an imposter in many Jewish circles. Sure, I had the family story, the hair, and the name, but my lived experiences always made me feel less than Jewish. In 2018, when I started college, my sister urged me to go to Hillel. It was the best part of college, Leah, she said. I went to week 1 services to appease her. 3 weeks later, I found myself leading songs and cooking dinner for students. Suddenly, my week was not complete without my Friday night at Hillel. At first, I still felt like that imposter, but I quickly realized there is not one way, or even just a few ways, to be Jewish. The spring of my freshman year, the Pittsburgh shooting happened. I was, of course, terrified. I thought, could this happen to me, leading a service at my Hillel house? But I also felt impassioned, and for the first time, I embraced my Jewish identity. I bought myself a Star of David necklace. I decided I was going to wear it every day. I wanted the world to know I am Jewish and proud. Perhaps some of you are nodding in agreement with my thoughts. Some of you perhaps cannot identify with a single part of my story. But we're all here today because we're Jewish and proud of it. My parents are proud to be Jewish. My sister is proud to be Orthodox. I happily sit somewhere in between. And just like my family, all of us, in spite of our differences, are all one big mishpocha.
I call this morning for our first virtual aliyah. Anyone whose Judaism feels underrepresented in our Ashkenormative communities. We see this morning Jews of color, Jews from the former Soviet Union. We see Jews from Arab countries, Jews whose recipes are almost never served on a Friday night at Hillel in the dining hall. Jews who are asked by our own communal siblings, "Oh, are you visiting someone here tonight for services?" We see you. We acknowledge you. We lift you up this morning for the first Aliyah. So how this is going to work is that you're going to chant with me at home if you feel called to this Aliyah, the blessings for the reading of the Torah. And I'm going to recite both the part of the folks having the Aliyah and the response. So sing along with me either way with the blessings here, and then I will chant and translate, and then we'll recite together the blessing after the Torah reading. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vahed. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vahed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. Amen. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem roshechem shivtechem ziknechem v'shodrechem kol ish Yisrael tapechem nishechem v'gerecha asher b'kerev machanecha mechotei v'tzecha ad shoev mecha Le'ovrecha bivrit Adonai Elohecha uvolato Asher Adonai Elohecha koret imcha hayom leman hakimotcha hayom lo'olam v'hu yihye lecha le'elohim Ka'asher diber lach V'ka'asher nishba la'avotecha Le'avraham le'yitzchak u'le'yaakov V'lo itchem levadechem Anochi koret et haberit hazot V'et ha'olah hazot Ki et asher yeshno po imanu omeid hayom lifnei Adonai Eloheinu ve'et asher einenu po imanu hayom. You stand this day, all of you, before the eternal your God. The heads of your tribes, your elders, all of your chieftains, every single individual of Israel, your dependents and your wives, and the stranger who lives close by your camp, from the one who chops your wood to the one who draws your water, in order that you may cross over into this covenant that the eternal your God is making with you, that the eternal your God cuts with you this day, in order to establish this day you for him, for God, as a people. And God, the eternal, will be for you as a God, as was said to you, and as was promised to your ancestors, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Not with you alone am I cutting this covenant and all of its stipulations. No, not only with you, with those who are here today, and also with those who are not yet here with us today. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Mishaberach avotenu ve'imotenu ve'kol chai lefanenu. Source of blessing for all those lives that came before our own. May you bless all those that still struggle for acceptance, belonging, and recognition in our community. May all those who go underrepresented be filled with the affirmation that they too have been made in your image, and that their Jewish practice is legitimate. May all who face discrimination have the strength to speak out and the courage to keep praising your name. And may we all soon know a day where all the people of Israel are recognized and celebrated in all of their diversity. Ken Yehi Ratzon.
Hi, Chag Sameach, everyone. Happy holidays. My name is Sarah, and I'd like to talk a bit about courage, which is something we all need now more than ever. This is a strange year. Normally about this time, I'd be putting on some nice clothes and getting ready to celebrate the high holidays with the rest of my community, but this year a lot of the synagogues will be empty. A lot of scary things are happening right now, and I think one of those things that doesn't get talked about as much is that a lot of us are spending more time alone, which is not necessarily something we're used to doing when we're at college. When I have a minute to myself, my instinct is to text a friend or watch a show rather than being alone with my thoughts. But now it's the time of year to do exactly that. It's the time for all of us to look at the kind of year we've had, thank ourselves for the good actions, and ask forgiveness for the bad ones. Somehow that seems easier when we're surrounded by family and friends, but this year I think the challenge is to use that extra time on our own to take a deeper look than we ever have at who we are, who we want to be, what we've done well, what we want to do better. And it takes courage to actually let yourself do that. When we say the holiday prayers this year, whether we're alone or with family, I think we should pay some extra attention to the meaning of the words. And we can also think about what we want to say to God in our own words. When we have the courage to examine and work on ourselves as people, we'll be able to take better care of ourselves. And when we take care of ourselves, we do better at taking care of our friends and family. We know that the Torah isn't just up in heaven, but it's in our hearts and in our mouths. That means that all of God's wisdom is there for us if we can just take the time to look for it. I like to think that the same thing applies to community too. Community isn't just some far-off thing that's waiting for us when this virus is over. It's something we can have with us here and now. We just have to fight a little harder to keep it alive. So this year, I hope everyone can use this time to take extra good care of our physical and mental health, so we can keep being there for our friends and we can keep our communities strong. Thank you for listening, and I wish you all a happy, healthy, and sweet new year.
For our second Aliyah, we call up students who engage with Israel in any way, with its people, with its land, with its complicated nation. Maybe you are a lover of Israel. Maybe you are someone who struggles with Israel. In any way that you engage with this nation and this land and its people, we invite you for the Aliyah this morning. We invite you to connect to this place. We invite you, a member of a people whose very name, Yisrael, means to struggle with the divine. So you're going to read with me the blessing before the reading of the Torah, and everyone else can respond. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah. Amen. Amen, ki ha-mitzvah hazot, asher anochi mitzavecha hayom, lo niflet hi mimecha, velo rechoka hi, lo vashamayim hi, lemor, miyale lanu hashamayma, vayikache halanu, vayashminu otah, v'nasena, ולא מעבר לים היא לאמור, מי יעבור לנו על עבר הים, ויחכך לנו, וישמינו אותה, ונעשנה, כי קרוב אליך הדבר מאוד, בפיך ובלבבך לעשותו. For this commandment that I command to you this day is not too wondrous for you. It is not so far from you. It is not in the heavens that you should say, who will cross over for us into the heavens and take it for us that we may observe it and hear it? And it is not across the sea that you might say, who will cross the sea for us and take it for us that we may hear it and that we may do it? No, for this thing is very close. It is in your mouth and in your heart to fulfill. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
מי שברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, ואמותינו שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה. הוא יברך את כל הסטודנטים והסטודנטיות של הלל, שאוהבים את ישראל, שלומדים על ישראל, שמגיעים לישראל כשאין קורונה, בעבור שעליתם לתורה לכבוד יום החג הזה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמרכם ויצילכם מכל צרה וצוקה, מכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיכם, בין אם בזום או בין אם פנים אל פנים. כן תזכו להמשיך במסע היהודי הישראלי שלכם, ונאמר אמן. May the one who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and our mothers, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, bless all the students of Hillel who care about Israel, study about Israel, travel to Israel, COVID permitting. Bless all those that hold a special place for Israel in their Jewish identity and in their heart. May you be blessed as you come up to the Torah in honor of this special day. May God protect you all from trouble and distress, from affliction and illness, and bestow blessing and success on all your endeavors, whether online or on life. May you continue to be passionate about Israel and your Jewish journeys. And let us say, Amen.
I invite you to join me in a moment of prayer for our loved ones who need healing of mind and body and soul this high holiday season. This year, I went through a battle with cancer and came out on the other side. And so much of my strength and determination came from knowing that others were keeping me in their thoughts and praying for me, even people that I didn't know. And so I invite you to not only gather in your heart your loved ones who need a prayer of healing, but think of everyone suffering right now and really give the widest prayer you can give. We join in the words of Mishaberach. Mishaberach Avotenu v'Imotenu Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, Yivarech et hacholim ha'ele, HaKadosh Baruch Hu yimalei rachamim alehem, lehachalimam u'lerabotam u'lehachazikam, v'yishlach lahem mehira refuah shlema min hashamayim, refuat hanefesh u'refuat haguf, hashta b'agala u'vizman kariv, v'nomar Amen. May the Blessed One of our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those that we love who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And together we say, with so much love, Amen.
In this section, the Jewish people are told that they have the freedom to choose between life and death. Some translations equate these things with good and evil, and some equate them with prosperity and adversity. But regardless, this proclamation is telling the Jewish people that they have the complete authority to make their own choices and their own moral decisions. And what I think is especially notable about this is that although the Jewish people are being given the autonomy to choose between life and death, they can't just simply choose life and be done with it. There's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with choosing life that's also explained in the proclamation, and it's up to each individual person, as well as these people as a whole, to do the work that choosing life and existing as a human in the world entails. So what really makes this choice come to fruition is this continuous set of actions that people have to keep taking. It's also made clear that the Jewish people are going to be held accountable for whatever actions they take. Making the choices that come with life will result in achieving longevity. Not making these choices will result in the opposite. So there are large consequences to all of these potential actions. This proclamation also leaves just as much room for failure as it does for success. Both life and death are set out before the Jewish people as equal options that will always exist alongside one another. The options of death and adversity will never just go away. There will always be opportunities to make the wrong choice. So choosing life and achieving longevity clearly isn't simple. It's easy to be afraid of taking on the burden and responsibility that come with being alive, and it's easy to be intimidated by the fact that no matter how many good decisions you make, death and adversity will always exist alongside life. But still, in the end, we're told to choose life, even though there's room for failure, even though not everyone will always make the right choice, even though death and adversity will always exist, even though it's messy and complicated. And it's something we can't just choose once. It's something we have to keep choosing every time we take on the responsibility that comes with existing as humans. Responsibility to ourselves, responsibility to our communities, and responsibility to the people around us. It's not an easy burden to take on, and it might sometimes seem easier to not choose life. But the message of this is clear and simple. Choosing life is worth it, and it's what we need to keep doing.
So we come to the third virtual Aliyah, and this is the one that's very close to my heart. Every year on Yom Kippur, in the afternoon service, we read Kedoshim, the Holiness Code. And it's this section of the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, that contains some verses that have been used to discriminate against, to oppress, to do violence against people in the lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer community, of which I am a part. And so it's been my tradition when I was working at New York University on every year on Yom Kippur, inspired by one of the first out Orthodox rabbis in the world, Rabbi Steve Greenberg, that we would do a moment of repair, that we would feel and understand what it might feel like to read, as Rabbi Greenberg did, those very words calling our lives and our loves a sin on Yom Kippur, on the holiest day in our calendar, and that we would turn that around and say, as we read Nitzavim, that's about all of us, that's about affirming and choosing life, that we would call up for the Aliyah, for the blessing to the Torah, members of the queer community. So if you, like me, are a member of the queer community, this is our Aliyah, and I invite you to chant with me the blessing this morning. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch et Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Amen. Rei natati lefanecha hayom et ha'chaim v'et ha'tov v'et ha'mavet v'et ha'ra. Asher anochi mitzavecha hayom li'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lalechet bidrachav v'lishmor mitzvotav v'hukotav u'mishpatav v'chayita v'ravita u'verachecha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher ata v'shama l'rishta. Ve'im yifne levavecha velo tishma v'nidachta v'hishtachavita le'elohim acherim v'avadetam. Higadeti lachem hayom ki avod tovedun lo tarichun yamim ala adama asher ata over et hayardain lavo shama l'rishta ha'idu tivachem hayom et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz ha'chaim ve'hamavet natati lefanecha habracha ve'haklala uvacharta b'chaim תהיה אתה וזרעך לאהבה את אדוני אלוהיך, לשמוע בקולו לדבקו. כי הוא חייך ואורך ימיך, לשבת על האדמה אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק ויעקב, לתת להם. See, I put before you this day life and blessing, and life and good, death and evil. That I am commanding you this day to love the eternal your God, to walk in God's ways, to keep the commandments and the precepts and the ordinances, that you might live and multiply, and that Adonai, the eternal God, will bless you in the land that you are going toward now to inherit. And if you turn your hearts and you do not listen, and you follow and you bow down to other gods, and you worship them, I tell you this day that surely you will perish, and you will not lengthen your days upon the land that you are crossing the Jordan to come there to inherit. I call to witness this day the heavens and the earth, life and death I have put before you, blessing and curse. So choose life, in order that you and your offspring will love the eternal your God, that you will listen to God's voice and cling to God. Because the eternal is your life and the length of your days, that you may dwell upon the land that I, the eternal, swore to your ancestors, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Ari Nave, the senior Jewish educator for the Hillel at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. This is my 4th year in this position and my 6th year being an out and proud queer rabbi. So I have the distinct honor right now of sharing a blessing to all of my LGBT community, but especially to all of you LGBT students. I see you. I mean, I don't see you right now. Right now I see my phone precariously balanced on a tripod, but you are seen, and your stories are important, and I'm glad that you're here. So, Yishaberach Avotenu V'Imotenu. May the one who blessed all of our queer Jewish ancestors, Harvey and Adrienne and Harold and Leslie and Alan and Adrienne and so many others, may you continue to shine your light and your hope on us. The great Harvey Milk always said, you gotta give them hope. And hope is in really short supply right now. So make with the hope, please. May you continue to strengthen our steps and lighten our loafers, and may you bring us joy and remind us to be joyous when we need it. May you make that joy, that beautiful queer joy that we have, may you make that joy as contagious and spreadable as possible. And may you remind us and everybody else in this world that we are here and that we belong here in all of our amazing and queer and beautiful glory. And finally, may you remind every single one of us, that we are loved and that your image is our image too. And that's love with a capital L and our with a capital O. And let us say, Amen. And probably call your mother. She's probably just concerned.
So in many communities, someone holds the Torah out of the ark during the Haftarah, the selection from prophets and other writings in the Hebrew scriptures that we read after the Torah reading. So I'm going to hold the scroll today and read for us from Isaiah for the Haftarah. And this is a section that reminds us that if we're not connecting this moment to the idea of prayer in the words in the prayer book, it's actually right on track, because God doesn't want services and empty worship. Whatever is divine in the world wants action. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nviim tovim, v'ratza v'divreihem hanemarin v'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, abocher b'Torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nviei ha'emet v'tzedek. Cry from the depth, says God. Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like the shofar. Tell my people their transgression and the house of Jacob their sin. Yes, they seek me daily, as though eager to learn my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not abandoned God's law. They ask of me the right way, eager for God's nearness. They say, why did we fast, and you did not see it? We afflict ourselves, and you do not know it. Because even on your fast day, you think only of desire while oppressing all who work for you. Because your fasting is filled with strife, and with callous fist you strike. No, fasting this day will not lift up your voice before heaven. Is this the fast I desire? A day to afflict body and soul, bowing your head like a reed, covering yourself with sackcloth and ashes? Do you call this a fast? A day worthy of the favor of Adonai? Is not this the fast I desire? To break the bonds of justice and remove the heavy yoke, to let the oppressed go free and to release all those enslaved. Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, to take the homeless poor into your home, never to neglect your own flesh and blood? Then shall your light burst forth like the dawn, and your wounds shall quickly heal, your righteous one leading the way before you, the presence of Adonai guarding you from behind. Then when you call, Adonai will answer, and when you cry, will respond, I am here. If you remove the chains of oppression, the menacing hand, the malicious word, if you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the suffering, then shall your light shine through the darkness, and your night become bright as noon. Adonai will guide you always, slake your thirst in parched places, give strength to your bones. You shall be like a well-watered garden, an unfailing spring. From you they will rebuild ancient ruins, they will lay foundations for ages to come, and you shall be called the one who mends the breach, the one who brings back the streets for dwelling. If you cease to trample Shabbat, stop pursuing your affairs on my holy day. If you call Shabbat a delight and the day of Adonai honored. And if you honor God by not doing business or speaking of everyday matters, then shall you take pure delight in the eternal. I will lift up your journey on earth to the highest of places and nourish you from the heritage of your ancestor Jacob. For thus spoke the Eternal. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol ha'omim, tzadik b'kol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'medaber u'makayem, shechol derav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al ha'nevi'im, ve'ayom ha'kippurim hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, lemehila u'leslicha u'lechapa, Rav v'chavod u'letifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mevarchim otach yitbarach shimcha b'fi kol ha'tamid le'olam va'ed u'devaracha emet v'kayam lad Baruch atah Adonai melech mochel v'soleach la'avonotenu v'lavanot amo beit Yisrael Uma'avir ashmotenu v'kol shana shana melech al kol haaretz mikadesh Yisrael v'yom ha'kippurim. Amen. We return. We return. We return, we return, we return, return again and again. We return, we return, we return, return again. You who answered our ancestors in their time of need, answer us. Mi she'ana l'Sarai imenu b'ziknata, hu ya'anenu. Mi she'ana l'Avraham Avinu b'har HaMoriah, hu ya'anenu. מי שענה ליצחק בנם, כשנעקד על גבי המזבח, הוא יעננו. מי שענה לרבקה בהליונה, הוא יעננו. מי שענה ליעקב בבית אל, הוא יעננו. מי שענה ללאה בעוניה, הוא יעננו. מי שענה לרחל בעצבונה, הוא יעננו. מי שענה ליוסף בבית האסורים, הוא יעננו. מי שענה למיילדות העבריות על האביונים, הוא יעננו. מי שענה ליוכבד על שפת היער, הוא יעננו. מי שענה לאבותינו ולאמותינו על ים סוף, הוא יעננו. מי שענה למשה בחורב, הוא יעננו. מי שענה לבנות צלופחד בעומדן פתח אוהל מועד, הוא יעננו. מי שענה לאליהו בקול דממה דקה, הוא יעננו. Answer us, you who answered our mother Sarah in her old age, you who answered our father Abraham on Mount Moriah, you who answered their son Isaac when bound upon the altar, you who answered Rebekah when she cried, "Why do I exist?" You who answered Jacob at Bethel, "Israel shall be your name." You who answered Leah in her sadness, you who answered Rachel in her pain, you who answered Joseph in the prison house, you who answered the midwives Shiphrah and Puah at the birthing stones, you who answered Yocheved's courage on the bank of the Nile, you who answered our fathers, our mothers, our parents at the Sea of Reeds, you who answered Moses at Sinai, "I bore you on eagle's wings." You who answered the daughters of Zelophehad, who stood up for their rights before Moses and God, you who answered Elijah with a still small voice in the wilderness, you who answered the righteous before us, people of integrity and compassion, answer us. A poem by the 20th century Hebrew poet Dalia Ravikovich. Pride. Afilu slaim nishbarim. Even rocks crack, I tell you, and not on account of old age. 40 years they lie on their backs in the cold and the heat. So many years it almost creates the impression of calm. They don't move so the cracks can hide. A kind of pride. Years pass over them as they wait. Whoever is going to shatter them hasn't come yet. And so the moss flourishes, the seaweed is cast about, the sea bursts out and slides back, and it seems the rocks are perfectly still. Till a little seal comes to rub against them, comes and goes, and suddenly the stone has an open wound. I told you, when rocks crack, it happens by surprise, not to mention people. We turn to the vidui, the confession. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, tavo lefanecha tfilatenu, ve'al titalam mitchinatenu, anachnu ozefanim, ukshe oref, lomar lefanecha, Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, tzadikim anachnu, ve'lo chatanu, aval anachnu chatanu. Our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence. And when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed, we have done wrong. Ay, 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 Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi, Hevinu, Verhishanu, Zadnu, Chamasnu, Tafalnu Shaker, ay, 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 Yatnu ra, Kizavnu, Latnu, Maradnu, Niatnu, Sararnu, Avinu, Rashanu, Tzararnu, Kishinu Oref, ay, 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 Rashanu, Shichadnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu, ay, 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 ay. Uteshuva, utefila, utsedaka. Uteshuva, utefila, utsedaka. These three words, teshuva, tefillah, and tzedakah, remind us of our daily responsibility for tikkun olam. So now we'll sing a prayer in English that reminds us also of the different ways that we can continue along this path of repair and healing in this world. And this is a call and response, so although we can't be together singing today, you can still respond and we can be in conversation this way. May the life I lead, speak for me, speak for me. May the life I lead, speak for me, speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, may the life I lead speak for me. Let's try. May the love I give, may the love I give speak for me. May the love I give speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, may the love I give speak for me. How about may the road I walk, may the road I walk speak for me. May the road I walk speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, may the road I walk speak for me. Let's do one more. May the songs I sing, here we go. May the songs I sing speak for me. May the songs I sing speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, may the songs I sing speak for me. For these sins, our God, we ask forgiveness. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha be'ones uveratzon, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'yodim u'velo yodim, the ways we have wronged you under duress and by choice, and the harm we have caused in your world consciously and unconsciously. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha bivli da'at, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'ritzat raglaim lehara, the ways we have wronged you through our thoughtlessness, and harm we have caused in your world through impulsive acts of malice. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chozek yad, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'zilzul chorim u'morim, the ways we have wronged you by abusing our power, and harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'yetzer hara, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'kashiyut oref, the ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and harm we have caused in your world through inflexibility and stubbornness. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chachash u'chazav, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'kalut u'vosh. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and the harm we have caused in your world by making light of serious matters. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'siach siftotenu, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tzarut ayin. The ways we have wronged you in our routine conversations, and the harm we have caused in your world through envy. V'al kulam elo selichot, selach lanu mechalanu kapelanu. For all these failures of judgment and of will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha begalui v'sater, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'sinat chinam. The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and the harm we have caused in your world by hating without cause. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'frikat ol, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'ma'achal u'v'mishteh. The ways we have wronged you by losing self-control, and the harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'gilui arayot, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'imutz halev. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and the harm we have caused in your world by hardening our hearts. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'neshech u'v'marbit, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'masav u'matan. The ways we have wronged you through greed and exploitation, and the harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'hirhur halev, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'rechilut. The ways we have wronged you through our innermost thoughts, and the harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chapat shochad, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chilul Hashem. The ways we have wronged you by offering or accepting bribes, and the harm we have caused in your world by profaning your name in public. V'al kulam elo selichot, selach lanu mechalanu kapelanu. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. We confess as a community on Yom Kippur. We confess in the first person plural. We have sinned. Pardon us, forgive us, grant us atonement. And I know in many ways, people who are in college right now are thinking, well, some of these sins, they're not ours. They're actually the generations before us. And so I want us to think generously today. I want us to think about the ways in which it changes our perception of our elders and the generations that came before, to stand together with those folks on Yom Kippur, and with folks who are younger than us, and with folks who aren't even born yet, and people who died a long time ago, and say, we have sinned and we want forgiveness. And so we've asked this morning a student in our community, whose artist's name is Westside Gravy, to compose a piece about forgiving across generations, about what it means to forgive our ancestors and what it means for our descendants to forgive us.
Hi, I'm Noah Shufutinsky, aka Westside Gravy, and I'm a senior at the George Washington University. I'm very happy to be here today to observe the high holidays with you, and I'll be sharing a piece that I wrote about the concept of forgiveness, responsibility, and how that relates to my generation and the time we're in now. It's called Forgiveness. It's hard to harness forgiveness while I'm sitting bearing witness, sincerity's non-existent. It's hard to harness forgiveness without acknowledging what's missing. So many of us are complicit. It's difficult to give an apology if you're too focused on what your thoughts should be and what's my counterpart's response to me. It's an obstacle to accept that apology when it doesn't hit with raw honesty and comes off as monotony. We're living in a world so tied to past policies, my peers in the field so eager to pass policies. Moving forward so fast, we're ignoring who's following, disregarding past figures who we should be honoring. Some who came before us ignored their responsibilities, the damage they inflicted restricting our possibilities. This time in the calendar isn't just about positivity, it revolves around examining our own vulnerabilities. We're a generation living in liminal space. Short attention spans, we'd rather speed past than live with mistakes. We're a generation living in division, sickened by our past mistakes, contemplating which should be forgiven. We're a generation, disappointed with what we've inherited. The future is comprised of uncertainty and we're scared of it. The changes we're resisting, we're learning, are always imminent. Lean into new discomforts, leaning into new beginnings. It's hard to harness forgiveness. Vulnerability means not knowing what to expect and being secure with the few things that are given, and I'm grateful to give myself 10 days to reflect. Thank you.
Our Yom Kippur Liturgy constantly reminds us, Ata noten yad lefoshim, v'mincha pshuta lekabel shavim. You, eternal God, you hold out your hand to those who do wrong. Your right hand opens wide to receive those who return. You don't have to believe in a personal God to know that you matter, to know that forgiveness and return might be possible. You have taken an account of your soul, a cheshbon nefesh, and together we have acknowledged our wrongdoings, and we have a chance to make things better. And as we pause in our day, preparing still for that moment when the sun sets and the gates of forgiveness close at Ne'ilah, I want to offer you a poem. It's by Jeannie Brinner, and it's called In Praise of Hands. It's inspired by a section from Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, chapter 9, verse 10. Whatever your hands have the power to do, do with all your might. For action and thought, skill and wisdom are yours in this world alone. In praise of hands. That they are slaves. That each tendon's a rope and the knuckles are pulleys. That their white bones line up like pieces of broken chalk. They are bound by flesh as leather around a Bible. That they dance and write in the air a story of what is lost, what is gained. That they are soldiers cut and bleeding, a link to the heart's kingdom. That they are so beautiful a moon has landed on each finger. That they are trained for harps and hired for murder. That the cuticles are shaped like soft horseshoes. They contain rivers. That the ring fingers shine as suffers when gripped by the powerful. That the palm yields to blisters and wears the calloused rings of repetition. That they are mythical with their lifelines hieroglyphics. That they struggle because of their great strength. They are able to heal themselves. That they know what it means to draw the water and work without pay. That they will hide our eyes and pray for our sins. That they may lift the hammer and lead our bodies to grace. That they will make a print like no other until they wave goodbye.
We are good, we are flawed, we are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good, we are flawed, we are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good, we are flawed, we are the breath of an imperfect God. Ay, 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 oh. Ay, 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 oh. Ay, 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 oh. Ay, 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 oh. We are good, we are flawed, we are the breath of an imperfect God. We are good, We are flawed. We are the breath of an imperfect God. Ay, 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 oh. Ay, 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 oh. Ay, 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 oh. Ay, 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 oh. We are good. We are flawed. We are the breath of an imperfect God.